In this video, I'm going to show how I make my dessert trinket dishes. So let's get started first with all of the materials I used. Firstly, I show off all of the different tin cans and jars that you can use to make your own trinket dish. It really just depends on your preference. I end up using the flatter ones for this tutorial though. I don't think I've ever used Mod Podge in any other tutorial, but in this one it is key. These are the tin cans that I ended up using. I found these at a art thrift store, and I found the other ones at thrift stores. You can just use recycled like candle tins and anything that you can get your hands on. There's no specific type of pin or needle that you need in this tutorial, just whatever you prefer. Here are the felt pieces that I chose for this project. Again, you can use any type of color you want. I bought my felt from Michael's and from an Etsy store called Over the River Felt. With a tin of your choice, you're just going to trace it out, giving it an inch or two off depending on the size of your, the length of your tin. I'm using this technique to make sure that I get it as circular as possible. And then I'm cutting out a second pattern that is just the trace. With the smaller piece, I'm making sure that it can fit inside of the tin. After cleaning out my tin, I'm just gonna shave it down a bit so that the glue sticks on better and can hold the felt easier. Now I'm cutting out the piece of felt that I'm going to use for the inside. I like to choose a bright, colorful pattern to use just because I feel like it pops. Since this tin can has a clear top, I'm actually going to cut out two pieces of fabric to use for the top and the bottom. Normally I don't like putting fabric on the lid, but I just don't like the see-through look since you'll be able to see the stitches. I'm going to use a pretty generous layer of Mod Podge to make sure that once it dries it's really stuck. You want to make sure that you press down pretty hard to make sure that the felt is really sticking. You can also put something heavy on top of it, which you'll see that I do in a bit, to make sure that it really sticks on. While you let that dry, you're going to move on to making the base. So I'm just going to pin the larger piece straight onto the felt, and I'm not going to give it any inseam length or anything like that. I'm just going to cut exactly like the pattern is. After seeing where the tin can fits to make sure it's right in the middle, I'm going to glue the sides and hold it firmly for a little bit to make sure that it is glued on. I want this to look like it's a messy crust, so to give it a lot of ridges, I'm going to run some thread around the crust area, and I'm going to take it out later, but while the glue dries, it's going to give it more shape. This also makes it look more like a waffle cone if you do make this into ice cream, which I showed in the beginning. Setting that to the side, we're going to start on the lid. I want this to look like a cherry pie, so I'm using some red felt. You can switch to blue or any color like that to be a different type of pie. Just a really simple change to make it a little bit different. Once I make sure that it covers the lid, I'm going to cut out the crust colored felt so that I could give it a weaving technique and sew it on that way to make it look like a pie. I'm going to use a darker brown for the thread to give it more of a burnt crust look, and I'm going to sew around the edges. and then I'm just going to trim off all of the excess. This is optional, but I want to make a little ice cream scoop, so I'm going to use some white felt and cut out the second pattern that I cut out, just so I can get it around that size and make sure it's big enough for the pie. Then I'm going to sew it with a running stitch to make sure that it is circular, but I am going to leave it a little unstuffed so that it has more of a wrinkly look, so it looks more like an ice cream. Once I cut it off, I'm going to cut the bottom part to make it look even more like ice cream. I'm going to cut 3 of them and I'm going to stack them on each other. Once I make sure it's secure, I'm just going to sew it straight onto the crust. This is the final piece that I'm going to cut out, and it's just going to be the crust around so that I cover the edge of the tin can lid. I'm just using a blanket stitch to attach the top. I'm just going to trim off all of the excess and make it as clean as possible. And by now the glue should be pretty dry, so I'm going to cut off the thread on the first part. And now you're completely done. I like to add a thread that matches the color to make it even cuter, but that's completely optional. Using these techniques, you should be able to make the ice cream waffle one perfectly without any problems. You can kind of mess around and look up tutorials on how to make certain fruits and do anything you want. I also have made cake tins where I sew the bottom and the top like how I made the lid on this one. But there's so many ways that you can create something completely different from this with this pattern, because you can I'm just showing you the base of it, and there's so many possibilities. I hope you guys like this video, and if you do end up doing this, I hope you guys tag me in it so that I can see, because I would love to see it. You can sell anything you make with this, of course, since it's so different and has such a variety. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to me, and comment anything you'd like to see a tutorial on.